All right. Well, welcome to the Circling Seattle Sports Podcast. I am joined today by Brad Evans, a longtime Sounder, had time with Sporting Kansas City and Columbus Crew, as well as the men's national team. It's a really great honor to speak with you, Brad. And just how you doing?
Very good, very good. Good weekend. Sounders victory heading into the playoffs. So was calling the match yesterday pre halftime and post game. So yeah, overall a great feeling, and basically four more games to go.
I just want to start off sort of before we get to the pro career here. How and or where did your love for the game of soccer really start? If you're able to sort of pinpoint that.
Oh yeah, man, this goes way back. So my mom will always tell the story that she took me to one t-ball practice playing rec sports, and I cried the whole time. So early on, baseball, t-ball was not for me. The next sport to sign up for was soccer, and immediately took to it. So I was 5 years old, 6 years old at the time. I played rec soccer until I was 10, and then I had a coach, approach my mom and was like, "Hey, either he can stay here and score, 10 goals a game and, everything's peachy and or he can take the next step and go to the next level and play some club soccer, a bit more organized.
Mm-hmm.
The players are going to be better. It'll be more of a commitment monetarily, right? Because YMCA soccer was pretty much free at the time. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to pay to play. But at that time, it wasn't a super big commitment still. It was only 2 days a week at that time kids were playing soccer. So went out and had a club tryout and made the team. And from there, everything kind of blossomed. But to be honest, soccer wasn't really my first love, I guess. I was good at soccer, so I did it. And my
Mm-hmm.
parents, drove me to training. I didn't know any better back when I was that age.
Oh yeah.
But I remember my first love was skateboarding. And I did that every single day. Soccer,
Huh.
I played twice a week and then had games on the weekend. But every single day I was skateboarding. I would build ramps, boxes. We would videotape ourselves skateboarding. A lot like guys do playing soccer now. They're
Oh
videotaping
yeah.
themselves
Oh
on
yeah.
Instagram. But back then I had skateboarders on my wall, no soccer players. Growing up in Phoenix, there was no soccer on TV. So it was kind of just something I did for fun. But skateboarding, I had access to, videos at the skate shop, magazines at the grocery store. So that was kind of my first love. But I'd say the true love for soccer didn't come until high school, late into high school, where, I started to, make all state and, realize that I had the potential to play in college. That's
Oh
where I
yeah.
kind of started dedicating way more time into soccer.
So I didn't really have this written down. So with skateboard, do you ever get out and do that anymore now? And try to keep that alive, or is that sort of something that was fun in the past and it's like, oh, good memory, or do you try to keep that going still?
Yeah, so growing up all the way until I was 18, that was my mode of transportation to school most of the time. I was obviously driving when I was 16, but I had a decent skate route because we'd go after school and skate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took skateboard to college. That was my main mode of transportation in Irvine and in Newport Beach. So now I just have a longboard. I don't do any tricks or anything anymore. Keep it relatively safe. But yeah, I got it sitting underneath my bed, and I'll take it out in the street here in Kirkland and cruise the hills. And there's a lot of similarities between skateboarding and soccer. It's that foot eye balance, where everything is that center of gravity, where I can really, see a lot of mirror body positioning, balance, strength in the lower extremity. Yeah, and vision too. I think there's a lot of
Oh
vision
yeah.
that
Oh
comes
yeah.
with skateboarding. You got to see things that are ahead of you, and soccer is the same thing. You got to try. It's like chess. You got to see steps ahead of kind of what's coming.
So would you say then, having that skateboard background, I guess, be like help in a way as you started moving towards soccer, like help in a transitional way, you'd say?
Yeah, for sure. I
Huh.
think for me personally, but
Oh
I
yeah.
know a lot of Chad Marshall was a skateboarder too growing up. So it's there are similarities between soccer and skateboarding. Snowboarding as well. It's that balance. Mike Facito, another guy who actually competed in snowboard competitions when he was young. So there is absolutely a connection between skateboarding and soccer, and that foot. It's the closest thing to a foot eye sport you're
Oh
going to
yeah.
get to soccer, I think.
So what factors came into play when it came to your decision to attend UC Irvine?
A lot of factors actually. So I actually took a recruiting visit to Oregon State. I was going to actually go to Oregon State at the time. They didn't offer me enough money to make it worth it for my parents and, school also. They were a Pac-10 team, so they were more competitive. I knew that I wouldn't get as much playing time also going to that school. I wasn't heavily recruited out of college. So I did a visit there. I did a visit to St. Mary's in San Francisco area. And then I went to UC Riverside for a visit. And those are the only 3 schools I actually took a visit to. My club coach in Phoenix was actually friends with the head coach at Irvine, George Kuntz. George has Arizona ties. He and my club coach back in the early 90s used to share a field actually in Phoenix, coaching 2 different teams at the time. So they would always run into each other and have a good chat, had a great relationship. So my club coach said, "Hey, George, he's going to commit to Oregon State, so you better fly out here to Phoenix and sit down with him and give him an offer." So George came out and came to my house and, said, "This is what Irvine has to offer." My club coach was on the board in the business school at ASU, so really, really was education driven. He had mandatory SAT classes for us throughout our, high school soccer career that he put on himself and had a SAT person come in and help us. So education was big, and UC Irvine was by far the best school out of all those.
Oh yeah.
And when he came to the house and made that commitment and was able to, give us a decent amount of money to make it worthwhile for my parents, that's when I said, all right, I'm going to go to Irvine. I didn't go on a visit. I didn't know too much other than that I had gone to a couple of youth tournaments there.
Okay.
So I kind of knew the campus. I knew that Southern California, the weather was going to be awesome. A great, safe community there at Irvine and a decent team when I arrived there.
So obviously, with your position now as brand ambassador, I'm sure it's not like you don't have to do the training, obviously, when you were a player. Do you, when things are normal, at least obviously right now, attending games in person outside of what you're doing isn't really a thing, I guess prior to this year, do you go out to any of even back to Irvine for games or, anything local, obviously the UWs around here, like their programs at all? Do you ever go to any of those games?
Yeah, no, I don't, to be honest. I don't go back to Irvine. They hit me up all the time for donations and stuff, but, my parents made enough of a donation for my education there to cover that for the next 100 years. So yeah, I don't connect with Irvine too much. I don't go watch UW. Honestly, my sports tank is full, dude. Like I gave so much to the game and so many hours and, hours outside of the field and just that commitment. It hasn't sparked that interest in me just to go watch soccer and, other than the Sounders. I'll watch a little bit of Champions League when it's on TV, but I don't watch other leagues. I keep up on highlights. I don't watch basketball. I don't watch football. I don't watch baseball. Nothing, man. I don't watch sports. And my family wasn't a sports fanatic group. Like we never watched sports growing up. Every once in a while, we watch the Cardinals or the Diamondbacks World Series. So I never had that like fanatic sport upbringing. And then to couple that with soccer and doing that for so long, all day, every day. I actually stay away from sports. I don't follow anything too closely. More often I'm watching, like X Games or, stuff like that, kind of completely different stuff. Yeah.
Just kind of interesting to see, obviously that becomes so much your life at some point, it's just like, I'm good at some point, I guess is that what, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The sports tank is full for me, dude. And it might be even overflowing. So, the desire isn't there yet to commit to soccer in like a coaching or spectator capacity for me. Outside of the Sounders, right? Like that's my job, and I wanted to still stay connected to the Sounders.
Oh yeah.
Initially, TV wasn't in the cards. Initially, that's kind of something that happened this year with how things kind of went. Mostly it was supposed to be, heading out to every community event, every gala, meeting with corporate sponsors and, hanging out with fans before the game and then going into the game. So things evolved this year. I'm happy that they did. I'm having a great time doing it. And I'm slowly finding that, love for soccer again, that maybe, in the next year or two, I might, step out to a UW game and watch and observe. But I'd rather go on a hike or something like that
Oh
than
yeah.
sit down and watch YouTube.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, maybe in the future it'll be there, but as of right now, it's pretty full. Yeah.
So this might be sort of interesting. To me, at least, it's interesting because when I interviewed Miles Gaskin, who went to UW and he's in the NFL, his draft experience, I'm sure, is completely different from MLS draft. But he didn't have a good experience, with the combine and all that. So what was your experience like in the MLS Super Draft, and how did that really go? Because to be honest, I'm going to admit I'm not too familiar with how that goes.
Yep.
The combine and all that.
Yep. So. Yeah, I would imagine ours are probably pretty similar. I didn't have a great combine experience, so it's the same thing. If they bring in the 52 guys or whatever that they think are gonna, get selected based on coaches' kind of like pre-approval and interest on these players, and then they'll come in for a combine. They break you up into 4 teams, and you'll do the 40, you'll do a jump test, you'll do the 5-10-5, you'll do all that stuff for speed, agility.
Mm-hmm.
They'll weigh you, they'll do your physical. It's pretty much the same thing, albeit we don't run routes, we don't have set plays, right? So we have to play soccer. So you get a couple days to train with your head coach that's given to you. And I remember training on a small field and doing some finishing, things like that. And then in the first game, I popped a hamstring. Ooh. And it was like 15 minutes in, and had to step out, didn't play another game the entire time there. And actually, I think it was a good thing that I got injured, because a combine is one where maybe you're highly touted and you come in and you have a shit combine, right? And you fall in the draft. For me, I signed a pre-draft contract, which meant the top 10 players going into the draft are eligible to sign pre-deals.
Oh,
so no matter where you're selected, you're going to get that contract. And it's a bit above minimum salary, but not that much. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I got injured, which wasn't good. So there was a little bit of an injury concern. So I ended up going number 15, I think, in the draft. And who knows, if I would have played, maybe I didn't score any goals, and I was kind of brought in as a forward. And you go 4 games without scoring a goal, and then all of a sudden teams are like, hey, we don't see you that high. We see you at 20, 30, 40, whatever it is. You start to drop. Mm-hmm. But luckily got injured, and Ziggy was a coach of mine with the under 20s before that, and he was like, hey, I know what this kid can do. So they took a chance on me at 15 and went to Columbus. 2 days later, that's the first time I ever saw snowfall in person. Wow. Coming from Phoenix, Arizona, you don't see that stuff. So
oh yeah,
a whirlwind experience. But yeah, the draft is just like any other draft. Not a great experience for me overall, but happy where I got selected, and happy that my family was there, and we all got to experience that together.
It's definitely interesting to hear both perspectives, obviously from not like entirely different drafts, but different in concept, I guess. Yeah. Just because, I mean, if you take, I'm sure it's the same on your side of it, but I know more about the NFL Combine just, because that was more of I played soccer first, and right. Then football sort of became a thing more for me. But it's really interesting to see how you can take these, combine numbers and things from that and sort of judge a player, and then they can be very wrong, So it really is interesting to see how that goes, because there have been so many misses. This guy can't, run around some cones,
right?
And he'll fall, So it's certainly interesting to look at that. You already kind of spoke a little bit about it. How was your time overall with the Columbus Crew? Because I know you didn't spend a ton of time there, but obviously that was, sort of the first step, I guess. And what are some of your favorite memories from your time with that club?
Yeah, I would say it was a tale of two. I was there for 2 years, and it was heads and tails, basically. First year was terrible. I got injured in preseason. At Irvine at the time, we weren't a powerhouse. We did really well my senior year. We only lost 4 games. That's why three or four guys got drafted from my team that year. But before that, we had a strength and conditioning coach that was dedicated to baseball and basketball and didn't know soccer. Soccer is a really specific type of lifting. You can't just come in and do Olympic lifts every day, because that doesn't replicate the style of what soccer is, right? So I wasn't physically ready for the next level. I was mentally ready, but I wasn't physically ready.
Oh, yeah.
So I came in, I did my hamstring, and so I came into preseason injured a bit. Finally got healthy, and then 4 games into the season, I came on as a sub for every 4 games, maybe started one of them. By the 4th game, I popped my quad, chasing after somebody, and then 4 weeks later, kind of got healthy, popped the same spot on the quad. 6 weeks later, 6 or 7 weeks later, popped it again, same spot. And then they were like, all right, season-ending injury. You're not strong enough to be here. You gotta be in the gym for the next half a year, and then we'll kind of reset and reeval for the next year. So I was on season-ending injury. I was like, Zig, can I go back and finish school? I had 1 quarter left, and he's like, no, you need to be here if you want to take it seriously. So we were butting heads. Wasn't in a good space mentally. Chad Marshall was my roommate at the time. He was on season-ending injury from concussion, so we were miserable together, playing video games, drinking a 12-pack. Seemed like every night, eating cereal. We just weren't in a good place. And after that year, I packed up all my stuff and I said, all right, that's it. I'm done. We'll go back to school and just finish up and, be a normal human. Parents said, no, you got to give it another year. You got to at least see what it's like when you're healthy. So I went back into the second season and did a full preseason, was healthy, was battling for the starting position actually. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Feeling good. Oh, yeah. And then the guy in front of me, a couple of games into the season, tore his ACL. And then they actually put in another guy who was a veteran guy in front of me, and he sliced open his shin or something like that. So then I stepped in. And from then on, I held that position throughout the remainder of the year and was able to, start and win the Supporters Shield and win MLS Cup. It couldn't be more different of an experience, my 2 years there. But overall, MLS Cup was obviously the number one highlight to bring the first MLS Cup to Columbus and to win the Supporters Shield too. A true Supporters Shield was really difficult, and that was incredible also. Packing that stadium with 15 to 17,000 was awesome. I had never played in front of crowds like that before. And just to be healthy was number one. And just when you think things are going well and it's a great team, a great group of guys that were all, partying together, hanging out all the time. This team was the tightest team I've ever been with, top to bottom. And then 3 days after MLS Cup, boom, see ya. You're in Seattle now. And so it was a bit of a roller coaster emotionally through the whole process, 2007, 8, and then getting picked up here right after MLS Cup. But, proud of my time there. It holds a great place in my heart. Made some lifelong friends and relationships, and you win a championship, that place is going to be really special.
Oh, yeah. So I'll ask that a little bit later, the differences between that 2008 one and 2016. But what memories really stuck out to you about the MLS Cup in 2008? Because I'm sure things have changed, in a huge fashion, from where they were then, from just how the game is, and how it's advertised, as well as just, I'm sure the fan size, So what sticks to your mind about that game back in 2008?
Yeah, what sticks out to me was the day before we left Columbus, we were scraping snow off the field, right? It was brutally cold and our feet were frozen. And then that evening you jump on a flight and it's 80 degrees in LA and the grass is long and, you're not really ready for it. As great as that sounds, you're actually used to playing in cold, crappy conditions in late November, December, early December in Columbus. So that was one thing that stuck out to me. The length of the grass on the field was really long, and that's one thing I remember. The ball played slow. But like you said, that MLS at that time was way different because that starting roster had 2 foreigners on the field, starting 11. The rest were American guys. So we had Gino Padula, who was a left back from Argentina, and Guillermo Berros Escalotto, who was just fired from the LA Galaxy, but he was our midfielder from Argentina as well. And then you had Alejandro Moreno, who, is Venezuelan, but he went to college in the U.S. and had played in Major League Soccer his whole career. So I consider him just about as, American as we were. He spent so much time here. So if you look at MLS Cup from last year, right, you look at the Americans on the field, there's maybe, 3 or 4. And so things have changed in 10 years. That is one thing I remember. And I remember being elated at the end of it. I remember, celebrating with the guys and how happy we were. And, the family comes on the field and, at 23, I think to win an MLS Cup is, you get told this after the game by Zig, it may not ever happen again, right? It may not. That's the reality of it. Some people don't ever win an MLS Cup. Some people who have played in the league for 15 years and 40,000 minutes and, never win an MLS Cup, never win a supporter shield. So you really have to reflect on that and look back on it and say, man, that was special, because it's a special time.
So obviously, and correct me if I'm saying his name wrong. I feel really bad. It's been a while since I've heard it. Coach Schmid.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't want to mess that up. Obviously, you had him for quite a decent amount of time.
Long time.
Through your career. And I'm sure you've talked about it before. But can you speak a little bit about your relationship with him? Because obviously, you just mentioned it. Well, not mention it, but previously you talked about how, you were thinking about, packing it up, and he said, no, you're going to do another year of it. What was his relationship with you like, and what did he ultimately mean to you? Because obviously, as you mentioned, with the U20 national team and Columbus Crew, and obviously here in Seattle, so as you said, quite a long time.
Yeah, a long time. He was my coach from MLS coach from 2007 to 2016. So you're looking at not many players can be together for that long. So I think the relationship that we had was interesting. Ziggy isn't a personable guy, I would say, but he carries things heavy internally and takes things to heart. So I would have nightmares at night screaming at him. We would be yelling at each other back and forth because we didn't agree on things on the field sometimes. And I would most of the time keep my mouth shut, and I guess it would all come out at nighttime. And we would just be screaming at each other in our games, like F-bombs at each other. And looking back on it now, I guess sometimes that's how relationships are. If things are going well on the field, something is going right. If we're winning, I'm playing, and we're able to have this relationship off the field that, looks like, everyone would call me his son, right? In soccer, that's what you say. Like Alejandro Moreno, I'll give you that example. Ziggy brought him to the Galaxy, and then he brought him back to Columbus, right? We would always say, Ali, that's your dad, dude. And we would always say that, right? That's just how you banter in sports. And I became the son at one point, and wearing that as a captain, and we wouldn't agree on things, and I wouldn't agree with the way that he was handling players. I never really said anything because we were winning, and I didn't want to rock the boat. But you look back on it, and then you realize, after his passing and the career that he had, and when you step away from soccer, you start to see what he really meant to my career. And without him, I'm not, where I am today. And that's massive when you think about like your legacy that you leave on a sport or with a team or organization or just personally. Because all the hard work paid off, and he was a massive part of that. The soccer knowledge early on was huge for me. I think the game got away from him at some point, and he didn't evolve quick enough to the next level and the way that soccer is now. He didn't foresee that coming, which is okay. Not everyone's going to see that coming. A 4-2-3-1, a complete change of position and tactics and things like that. So, I would say he is probably the most influential, piece to my career and where I ended up. And he trusted me, and you can't ask for anything more than that. Even if you don't like the guy, which I did like him, but even if you don't like the guy, if he trusts you and plays you, you got to roll with that, man, because the next coach you have might not like you for what he says. If he says he does, he might not play you. So if you're playing, you got to internalize things and roll with the punches and keep getting victories.
To me, it's always interesting to see the relationship, between a player or a coach and their players, because obviously I feel like in any sport, coaches, you're not always going to be buddy with those guys. It's not always going to be completely safe, completely easy. You're going to get yelled at. Things aren't always going to be clear to you, I guess, as a player or even as a coach, so it's to have somebody like that, as a player and I guess any level is just someone who helps keep you going or just sort
Yeah.
of there with you. I feel like that's something that, is really, really, I wouldn't say unique,
It's
but it's,
valuable.
oh yeah, valuable. That's
It's
the word.
valuable.
Yep.
And I'll give you another example. I remember 2014 or 2015, Ziggy decided in preseason, I'm going to play you as a center back. And I was like, I've never played that position before. And he told me before, he said, hey, stuff's going to happen in the first, 3, 4, 5 games, but you're my guy. I'm sticking with you, and we're going to ride through it together because I think you can do it. And, the first year that we were together playing center back, Chad and I, we had the least goals against average in MLS. So that is that kind of like ride or die sort of attitude. And when you have that behind you, it gives you, positive feelings. It gives you, confidence moving forward. If you do make a mistake, you know that he's not just going to yank your jersey and, hey, sit at the end of the bench, right? So that relationship was there and established beforehand, and that was massive in that transition to a different position as well.
So I don't know if this is entirely different than your like first draft experience, but what was, I mean, you alluded to it a little bit. What was the expansion draft part of, like, because I know you got the call and all that, but was there anything, because expansion draft's an entirely different thing, and it's sort of unique. And it's interesting to me because here in Seattle, we've got our hockey team coming next year, and that'll be a whole thing. I have no idea, when that's going to take place. But that's got to be a unique experience in itself.
Yeah, really weird. So the way the expansion draft works is at the time, I think there was 22 teams in the league, maybe something like that. Maybe less at the time, actually. There may have only been like 20 teams. So Seattle gets to select 11 players total from 20 teams. Once one player is selected from Columbus, then the rest of the roster is protected. You can't select another player from Columbus. So, we won MLS Cup on a Sunday. We flew back Monday morning to Columbus. Tuesday morning, we had meetings. I thought for sure my option was going to get picked up. Hey, you were a massive part of this team, and we're going to not leave you unprotected. We're going to protect you. But I went into the meeting and like, hey, we want you here, but unfortunately we're going to have to leave you unprotected because at that time there were rules where you had to protect a certain amount of foreign players. And we had a couple on the bench. So they had to protect those guys. That's what I was told, at least. I don't know if that was true or not. There could have been a backdoor deal between Seattle and Columbus also that is an unspoken thing that's never come out, which maybe in 10, 15, 20 years that'll come out. But who knows? Anyways, the funny thing is we didn't know at the time, but Ziggy didn't come to Columbus with us. He stayed in LA. He was at the bus saying, congratulations, I'll see you guys soon, hopefully. And now, how bizarre is that, right? Like, oh, you're not coming back with us?
Mm-hmm.
But to be fair, every time we flew to LA to play Chivas or the Galaxy, he wouldn't come to the hotel with us the night before the game. He would go to his house with his wife because his wife still lived in LA. So it wasn't out of the norm to see him not come back with us because that's kind of just what he did. He always took an extra day to hang out on the front end and the back end. So anyways, we get back, we have our meetings, and then by Wednesday morning, I've got a backpack and, a small suitcase for what I think is going to be a short postseason and then come back in January. And by the time I flew to Phoenix, I landed, I had a voicemail that said, hey, call me back. You've been selected by Seattle in the expansion draft. And I was with Robbie Rogers and Steve Lenhart, and they were connecting through Phoenix to go to Southern California. And it was kind of like, all right, guys, I guess I'll see you when I see you. And when Steve got back to Columbus a couple months later, he threw all my shit in a truck, shipped it off to, sold everything else, shipped it all to Seattle. And that's where the story kind of began here.
So obviously there was soccer in Seattle prior to that inaugural season. It just wasn't necessarily the same franchise, I guess. What was it like to be a part of an inaugural season? Because I'm sure, I guess locker room wise and chemistry wise and even fan wise, that must be, a real unique experience. So what do you really remember about that inaugural season, and what was the chemistry like in that locker room? Because I'm sure, with that draft, chemistry is always big to me, whenever you look at any team, how people gel together. So it must have been, I'm just going to ask you, what was that like? in that locker room.
Yeah, honestly, it was great from minute one. They brought in a bunch of guys who were always put the team first. The majority of the guys, especially through the expansion draft, always put the team first. You're talking, myself, Stephen King, Nathan Sturgis, Nate Jakwa, Tyson Wall. I mean, I could run through everyone, and all those guys are all about the team all the time. There wasn't one guy who was like this big name player that they brought in, because we knew that Casey was coming. Loomberg was coming. You add Zach Awani to that, Freddie Montero. So you get your sprinkle of like the big name players.
Mm-hmm.
And then you couple that with just a bunch of hard-nosed, hard-working guys. Pattiani, just dudes that'll run through a brick wall for anyone on the team, even if they first met them. And that's what made that team so successful from minute one. And that's what I remember from that first locker room, was that everyone was so cool. And then you get the old guys from the Sounders, Taylor Graham, Roger Levesque, Zach Scott, Sana Niasi, just a bunch of guys that love Seattle and would be like, hey, all right, we're going out to whatever bar tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to hang out at a bar tonight, because they know the city and they know all the bartenders, especially Roger. They know all the bartenders, and just a great vibe and a great feeling from day one. And the coaches made it such that they weren't trying to crush us the first days. I remember that. It was all about playing, and we're going to play good soccer. And that was really cool, because you go to VMAC is where we first started, and you see this facility and the players, because ours wasn't finished yet. When you walk in, you're like, whoa, this is what sports are really like. And there were cameramen at training facilities, interviews, like you get a great lunch. In Columbus, we were paying for our own lunches as players. It was a joke, right? A little tiny locker room. It was so amateur. Once we came to Seattle, they really set the bar for the next decade. And I remember Ziggy pulling me to the side at one of the trainings at VMAC, and you're at the lake and the grass is perfect, right? And he was like, what do you think? And I was like, this is incredible, right? As a player, this is why you play. You see it in Europe. You see these facilities and the way that they're treated, and you only hear about these things. But now you get to be in a place where you're that person. You want to repay that debt. You want to say, hey, I'm going to run through a wall, not for my teammates, but for what this organization has done for me personally.
So obviously, I'm sure, things have changed since then, but would you say that's a testament to, how well run this organization has been, and, the continued success? I mean, obviously anybody can go and make a team for, say a couple of years, but to continue to do that, I mean, in both teams that had that VMAC experience, to have that continued success and that sort of franchise, doing what they do. I mean, I'm sure you could speak to that, what they do to keep, everybody from the locker room happy to things and the staff level. Would you say that's a testament to just what they want to do, from like winning to just winning the right way, I guess you could say, rather than just trying to win at all costs?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the example of Atlanta United. They come into the league. They've got Arthur Blank behind them. They've got Mercedes-Benz. They've got this amazing coach, and then they've spent, $30 million on players, on transfer fees to bring them in. And this team was amazing for 2 or 3 years. And now this year, I don't think they made the playoffs. They're awful. There's been tons of teams who have come in and splurged. The Galaxy were it for a long time, and they were awful this year. So it is a massive testament to make the playoffs 12 years in a row. Second longest playoff streak, I think, in modern sports, behind the Penguins or something like that, who did it. I don't know when they did it, but they've made the playoffs 14 years in a row at some point. So that's huge. If you're a sports fan and you look at that, you're like, oh wow, what are these guys doing that make it so successful? Mm-hmm. A huge part of that was being able to partner with the Seahawks from the beginning, because the Seahawks know how to win. And they've shown that also in the past 10 years, since the Sounders have been around too. And then the Sounders broke off from the Seahawks and decided, hey, we're going to do this on our own. Thank you. And the quality all around wasn't the same, because the Seahawks had a different set of standards for their organization and their group. But the winning mentality stayed the same. Mm-hmm. So that's the tough part, is now 10 years later, that facility that the Sounders are in was cool in the beginning. And now you're seeing, Vancouver, amazing facilities. Portland, great facilities. Kansas City, Atlanta, all these teams. But the paradox is, oh, you're winning still. Why change anything, right? But ultimately, we want the modern game, and I know that a training facility is on the horizon. But it just says a lot about what the front office has done to keep this organization going. I'm sure they could have cut corners at times with player signings and staff to make those player signings. Because football, you've got data scientists behind it, you've got scouts, you've got everyone, right? That it's a bigger machine than just a manager saying, "I want that guy," and an owner saying, "Okay, I'll pay for him." It's not how it goes. So what they've been able to do top to bottom is extremely impressive, and no other team has come close to replicating it in Major League Soccer. There's been, the Galaxy have been around since the beginning, and they've won 5 MLS Cups, but other than that, there hasn't been another team who have done it better than the Sounders.
The sustained success, you have to look at that. And as you said, you got to say, hey, what are these guys doing? And it's doing things the right way, and making sure just that standard, I guess, is really something that's, for some people, they can't replicate that.
Nope.
So I have 2 questions here, but they might be tied together. And if they are, I'll work with it. But do you have a favorite Sanders teammate if you can pick one? I know, sometimes it's hard for guys to say, hey, this is my favorite guy, but do you have that Sanders teammate? And I think I've got it, but, I'll let you speak first.
There's been so many guys. I mean, when you're with a team for, almost 10 years, and there's only been a couple guys who have been here, as long as I had with the team. So you're going to cycle through people. You're going to cycle through roommates. My first roommate, Tyson Wall, still is a great friend today, and who's now the Academy GM at Austin FC. A great guy, a super close friend. A guy like Eric Freeberg came in, super close, and just the funniest person I've ever been around. And, Mike Facito, he met up with us at Yellowstone last year and came to the North Cascades National Park with us for a week, someone who is still super close and just a great guy. But, Chad Marshall is probably my best friend when it comes to, soccer, anything going on outside of it, constant communication. And because we played in Columbus before, and we had known each other since 2007 now. So that's a long time to know somebody and see their family grow and, grow as players together, and, through happy times, but also commiserating also when we both see the game the same exact way. And that is the coolest part. We see life pretty much the same exact way too. And a great roommate, incredibly funny person, great guy in the locker room. Everyone loves him. And I'd have to say Chad overall, but been very lucky with great teammates and roommates also.
So, I was just going to then ask, what, if you'd like to speak more to your relationship with Chad, because obviously, as you mentioned, with, being a roommate, and then obviously I've played a little bit of center back, so I know what it's like to, it's important to have somebody, who does look at the game the same way, because you can't, have 2 guys who are, right in front of the goal, bickering. And how is, sort of as I asked with Coach Schmid, how has he impacted your life as a whole? Because obviously you spoke about, it is really cool to see, someone else's family grow. But can you speak a little bit to, the mark that he's left on you, I guess?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. I think when you go through things with people, you're naturally going to grow together. And those are good and bad times. And those will always make you closer. And it gives you an appreciation for how they go through good times and tough times also. And it gives you an essence for a person's character as well, and what kind of person they are. And, like I said before, when Chad and I were together, we were, frankly miserable together in Columbus. And maybe that was the perfect timing for both of us to meet and to be miserable together. When we look at, where we are now as friends and our relationship, I think that kind of is what kicked it off. And when I say miserable, we were, basically on season-ending injury, which means you can't do anything. Mm-hmm. He had concussion problems, so I remember he would get hit in the head, and we'd drive home, and he would sit in his room with the lights off for like 3 days in a row. and crying, crying, like from
Oh
the
yeah.
pain, from the feeling. And when you see somebody go through something like that and you just want to help them, that brings you closer together also. And, he'd get better. And then, we'd start remodeling his house. And, we'd play. That was when Guitar Hero came out. So we'd play Guitar Hero all day long. Reverse Halo, play Halo all day long. And then show up at practice, and we weren't training. So we could just like screw around and just joke around with people. And then we'd check out early and go to a separate gym and grab a smoothie and sit in the hot tub. That was our basically 2007. And then was lucky enough to get him here in Seattle. We had some national team camps together, and it was always like just seeing your brother when you saw each other again. And that just continued. And he became more of a family man, but the person I knew never has left and never left. So that's the one thing I love about Chad is he's never changed who he is and like what he stands for, and just his overall attitude, outlook, and winning championships together is the best thing. There's just a lot of stuff that brought us together and that we can share in these memories together, and it's like a family member, right? I probably spend more time with Chad than any family member I've ever had, and that's the reality of it. So he is a family member to me.
I kind of want to go off script on what I have, because it's interesting to me. There was when we lost our Sonics here, there was a city council member who said that sports don't have any sort of cultural value, and just exactly, that's I could say more, but you kind of see what I see. Just to have people in my life who I can definitely say, obviously, not the exact same situation, but to have that sort of like a brotherhood, it's sports builds that in a way that I haven't really seen in many other situations or, facets. So, it's sports are so, obviously it's fun to watch highlights and all that and get into the whole merchandising and all that, but it's when you play sports and you're able to make those relationships, I think there's, some of those relationships cannot be replicated in any sort of, different job or different hobby. It's just those things,
Yeah. The way I see it different than anything else is, especially as an athlete, you learn through experiences what it's like to be part of a different culture and what it's like to really experience diversity.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a church and that can be your like community and where you get your stuff from, but most of the time it's probably the same exact color, the same exact look, and the same exact like-minded person as you. You could go to a concert, and depending on the demographic of that artist, it's mostly going to be like-minded people and like-minded colors for the most part. But what you have in a soccer locker room especially is you could have 30 guys on a team and you could have 15 or 20 different nationalities all working towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
And they all bring something from their countries, cities, backgrounds that you learn to empathize with, and you learn how to all work together to attain a same goal. And I think when you're looking at how polarized everything is right now, I don't think enough people understand what it's really like to be a part of a team, and especially a diverse team. You have to be careful in a soccer locker room because you've got, when Kaepernick was doing his kneeling, you've got guys who floated here, possibly on a raft at some point, or, defected to a Target parking lot and then sought asylum from, a place in Cuba, right, where you're making $2 a day and just want to be here to have a better life. And they understand those problems and systematic racism, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they also understand that, oh man, if I speak up, I might get kicked out of this country. I don't know the rules here entirely. I hardly speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
So people would ask me that all the time is, what's the temperature of the locker room? Well, the temperature of the locker room with such a diverse group of people is that, hey, in their country, things might be even worse than what's going on in the US right now. So they might not see this as a problem. What one word in English is derogatory might not mean the same thing in another language or another country. The politics here maybe they're coming from a dictatorship or a socialist place. They don't understand how there's only 2 parties of government and not 8. So the locker room teaches you how to work with and to achieve goals with a super diverse group of people. That's the biggest thing I could take away from sports and culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I don't know, that was a tangent, but
No, it's actually
culturally speaking, yeah.
Oh, I really like that because it kind of segues into the next thing I've got. But my high school, O'Day High School, it's on First Hill. If you know First Hill, you know.
Yeah.
We get people from all over, you know, and it's really. I was lucky enough to experience both sides. I was able to experience the football locker room there and the soccer locker room in my last year there, and it's having that locker room experience, having those different guys from, you know, whether it's different parts of the state, different parts of the country here, or different parts of the world. It's having that, I feel like, is really almost invaluable, you know, and it's to have that sort of those experiences and that perspective, especially in, as you said, a time like this. I really think it's really important, you know, because what O'Day preaches is brotherhood, because it's an all boys school. But it's having those experiences, meeting those different guys from all over, as you said, you know, just having those guys who may have, you know, come here from experiences that were obviously not as good, or, you know, different experiences, you know.
Yeah.
That's something that I really, when I think about sports, is really important to me, because I've seen that thanks to O'Day. And my segue there is DeAndre Yedlin went to O'Day, and I just wanted to ask what memories that you had with him, because obviously he's not with the club anymore, and, you know, a lot of Sounders fans, me alike, would like to see him back at some point. You know, that's obviously not in my hands, you know, but he going to O'Day, you know, and having people in my family who went to O'Day, and to see him, you know, play with the Sounders was really cool, and then to, you know, go see him play with other clubs was really interesting. And so, you know, you having that experience on the same team with him, I was just curious what memories you had with him and what he was like.
Yeah. You know, he came in, kid out of Akron, you know, a couple years, and didn't know much about him other than that he was fast. That was my first, what I had heard. I never saw him play. Even in the academy, I don't think I ever saw him play. And I didn't see him, you know, obviously I don't watch college soccer, so I didn't see him. But I remember coming in, like, you know, he's DeAndre. So whether it was, you know, 10 years ago where he was young but super confident kid. When you're that fast, who isn't confident when you're that fast? Whether you're talking basketball, football, baseball, if you're fast, you're confident because nobody can keep up with you, no matter, even if you're not as skilled, right? Who cares? Speed can conquer all most of the time. But I just remember building this relationship with him when I was playing right mid and he was playing right back. And we just had a great understanding of each other and how we wanted to play the game. And I just knew that I just will always remember his attacking prowess. Anytime I got the ball, I would just wave him on, come around, make an overlap, and I'll cover for you, just like he would cover for me. So I remember games against the Galaxy and, you know, Landon starting out wide and Landon Donovan, and, you know, we would neutralize him. And we had just a great sense of how to play with each other. You know, my game is more built on the brain versus speed or athleticism, really. And his was opposite. His was athleticism before the brain. And so I think we complemented each other, much like a good center back would complement another center back that is like-minded, but also not. I wasn't as fast as Chad. I wasn't as physically gifted, but we both saw the game the same. So yeah, I remember neutralizing Donovan was a standout moment for me anytime we played him, because that was, you know, him and Clint. Those are the guys. Put that in the bank. And I remember just seeing his progression as a player and then scoring better and better goals and staying after training and working harder. And, you know, you get a sniff of overseas and of interest, and that's got to pique anybody, and you want to take off. So happy to see his progression and the player that he's become, World Cup, you know, and everything. So that was great.
Yeah, it was, like I said, being an O'Day guy, you know, seeing that.
That's cool.
It really is interesting. And to have, you know, to hear that, you know, seeing his progression, I'm sure that must have been really cool. And obviously, you know, I'm not too familiar with how that works, but I'm sure, you know, if you do get that overseas taste, it must be, you know, sure, this is cool, you know, but this is a whole new experience.
Yeah.
You know, so obviously I'd like to see him back sometime, but, you know, that's up to him to decide and the club. So, you know, that was definitely cool to hear. This is going to be sort of a two-part thing, but because I'll get to the game itself. I alluded to a little bit earlier with 2008. What differences did you see with the 2008 MLS Cup and the 2016 MLS Cup? And then after that, I want to talk about extra time and the penalties. But
yeah,
first
I think
off, the comparison, I guess. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think the biggest comparison was just the quality of play on the field. I think if you look at both games, you know, 2008 was just a different time in MLS soccer. I think a little bit slower, maybe a bit more methodical. And now it was a final that was fast from minute one. You know, Toronto was flying and had Sounders on their heels. But that's soccer, because you could have the best game in the world, but as long as your defense holds, you've always got a chance. And on that day, it was bitter cold. I was coming back from injury, so I came on as a sub, and my hair was long at the time. And I remember it got wet and it froze right away. So it was like 16 degrees and the wind chill also was below. And it was hitting me in the face. So I went over to the sideline and they just grabbed my hair and I was like, you got to cut it. So they just went zip and cut my hair right on the sideline.
Jeez.
I remember I took off my gloves and my hands were freezing and I was like, give me the gloves back. And I couldn't even get them on myself because they were just like locked in. But yeah, the atmosphere, way different, because at the time with Columbus against New York, it was at a neutral site in LA. But now you're playing in Toronto, Supporter Shield winners, and you're playing in their house to win a game. So atmosphere was the biggest difference. 80 degrees in LA, 15 degrees in Toronto. So there was a lot that played into it. It just felt bigger also, a bigger stage. It felt more like what a championship should be. And then you hit to overtime. And at that point, it's kind of like you're watching the game from the sideline. You come in and you're like, all right, let's just hang on here. Let's see what we can do. Get a couple chances and waste some time and get into penalties. I thought I would take number 3. And Schmetz was like, you're going to take the first one. And I was like, okay, whatever. So step up, pick my corner, bottom right once again, and sent the keeper the other way, and a nod to the fans. And then you kind of have to, the pressure's off of you at that point, right? All the pressure's on you at number 1. And then all of a sudden there's literally nothing you can do again until the next season. So you have to sit back and just be a cheerleader for your guys. You head back to half field. You don't even say anything. Just like, all right, let's go, let's go, let's go. You don't give information, because as a penalty kick taker, you pretty much have your mind made up before you get up there. Something might change at the last second, but you don't give anybody information like, oh no, go left, or you should go right here. You don't do that in soccer, right? You let the player decide, and they got to be the ones to determine where they go. So you get back, and then you're watching these kicks, and Joven, man, sticks one top left, which was incredible. And then finally, you end up getting to Roman, and a couple saves, highs and lows from Steph. We miss, they miss, and then we make, they make, and then you get to the point where it's like, oh my God, we could win this right now. And then it's Roman, and you're like, I've never seen this guy take a penalty kick in training or in a game before. Like, what is this guy doing taking a PK? Like, he's going to miss for sure. But then you're still holding on, like, come on, make it. And then he steps up, and it's a terrible PK. If the goalie guesses the right direction, it's an easy save. And then you just go nuts and rip off the shirt, even though it's like 15 degrees, and then you just go crazy, and you jump dog pile, and then the family starts to come down, and they're freezing cold, and you're still just like hyped up and warm. And then you get into the locker room, pop some champagne, and figure out the next day basically that your option is not going to be picked up at the meetings. So soccer is a business, number 1. So as awesome as these championships are, you step in the next day and they say, hey, we're not going to pick up your option. We're going to need you to take a pay cut. and then it's like, oh, okay, cool. I was just on a high, and now I get kicked in the groin. So, but that's sports, right?
Oh yeah.
And when you reflect on it, if I was to tell anybody in my position back then, you got to roll with the punches. You just got to roll with them, because ultimately it's about extending your career as long as possible, and just hanging on for as long as you can once you start to get older. So, good career.
So from there, I was going to ask what helped it, but I guess obviously, not picking up the option leads to that. But what sort of like with college, what came to assisted you in your decision to sign with Sporting Kansas City?
Yeah, so we had made the next year. So actually, they said, we're not going to pick up your option. And then as soon as I was going to get on the flight home, on the chartered flight home, they actually gave me, oh yeah, we are going to pick up your option. So then I came back here in 2017 and finished out that year, got injured late. I had a herniated disc in my back in August. So I was out for the remainder of the season, got healthy towards the very, very end, but couldn't make it back in time for MLS Cup. And then sat down with Adrian. They were like, look, we can't offer you a contract unless you're fully healthy through preseason. And I was like, I know I'm not going to be healthy through preseason. So I'll come into preseason and give it a shot, but I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to. So I'm calling around other MLS teams. Hey, I'm ready to go. I feel good. What's going on? And I spend the first day with the Sounders, do some fitness testing, felt good with moving with the ball. Second day, do some more fitness testing, and felt good. And they were leaving for Arizona that day to go to preseason. Still no contract. You're training as a free agent at the time. And then Kansas City calls. Head coach Peter Vermees was the assistant coach on the 2005 under-20 national team with Ziggy. Peter is actually the one who got me on the team. At the very end, Ziggy left the decision that each of the assistant coaches could pick one player that they thought should be on the team. And I was that player for Peter to get on the under-20 national team. So actually at the end of that camp, we all had jerseys out and signed. And Peter actually took my jersey and has it hanging up, I think, at his house, which is pretty awesome. So we've always got along great. He's tried to get me to Kansas City for years. Anyways, he said, hey, we want you. Jump on a flight today. We're hanging out in Phoenix also. And we'll talk about contract. And I was like, okay, cool. So I basically had to call Adrian and tell Schmetz and like, hey guys, these guys are offering me a contract. So I got to go. Like, I know I'm not going to be healthy through preseason. Peter's saying, hey, it doesn't matter. Take your time. Okay, great. That's the best option for me. I fly to Phoenix, and they were like, we'd like to talk about a contract in the next week or two. But then within 2 days, they were like, look, we're just going to put you on the roster. We're going to give you a contract. Gave me a 1+1, and it was a good salary. And I was like, sweet. So that experience was incredible. The team was amazing. The coaching staff was amazing. The team did amazing that year also. So a great experience overall, but I just couldn't get healthy enough to really break in the first team. They wanted me around for the 2019 season because I was playing well and getting to that point close, traveling on the bench for the postseason that year, but just couldn't ever get to the point where I felt like I could make an impact, and so decided to call it. And took a year off, traveled, went to Africa, did some soul searching, bought an Airstream, lived in that for 6 months, traveled around some national parks, and came back to Seattle, and now stoked to be the brand ambassador and continue that for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that was something that always stuck out to me because I'm just going to admit it. Soccer's always kind of been, like I said, it hasn't been on the front of the brain, but I had to always remember seeing your name. And then when I went to do research, I was like, oh, Kansas City. And then obviously with this year, having them at the top of the
good team.
Kind of interesting. So you talked about it a little bit with Columbus, obviously having that great year in 2008. But is there a specific season here in Seattle that you would consider that you had the most fun, I guess, or one that really stuck out to you amongst the other seasons?
I don't know. Sometimes they all blend into one. 2014 was awesome. It was an amazing team. It was a team that won the Supporters Shield, which is really cool. Amazing players. Clinton Oba playing at their best. Marco Papa, Kenny Cooper, Chad Barrett. Like, that attacking prowess was ridiculous. but there were a couple seasons before that, like with Mauro and Eddie Johnson. And I remember I was playing a lot of center mid and, scored 5 or 6 goals, I think, and a handful of assists. That was really cool. Making an impact offensively is what I did when I was younger. And that's what I really love, is scoring goals. Like, there's no better feeling scoring a goal in an MLS game. It's ridiculous. It doesn't happen that often. So, for most players, it doesn't happen that often. So, 2012, 2013 were fun years. I could go back to MLS Cups. I could Open Cups. It's when you win a lot, it's kind of hard to pick one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a losing team that only wins one championship, then that's easy. That's obviously the year. But yeah, I think I could, just like my traveling and going to all the national parks, every day I think of something cool about a different place that I didn't think of the day before. Same thing with soccer in my memories. Some days I think of Open Cups as, those experiences were great. Sometimes I think of MLS Cups were great. Sometimes Columbus, sometimes Seattle. So it changes for me. I don't think there's one pinnacle that really sticks out. You couple that with some national team stuff, it's really hard to pick.
So obviously, you've spoken about injury, and obviously a little bit with Kansas City about, not feeling like you could make that impact. Would you say that there was one challenge or one issue that was sort of the toughest of your professional career, or are there just a couple things that I guess were a hindrance that, you would consider the toughest? Or is there, like I said, something that really stuck out to you, I guess?
Yeah, there's a couple things. My rookie year, you don't ever want to sit on the bench, for the entire year and be injured. The last thing you want to do as a player is rehab constantly. It's the worst thing, because you're off to the side and you're watching all your guys have fun and, play the game that you want to play. It's like being kicked out of a game, right? And you can just watch from the sideline. It's the worst feeling. So that first year was tough. I was doing well in 2010, I think, when I had knee surgery and missed half the season. 2014, not making the World Cup roster because I was part of the national team, and then got injured early in the season and didn't go into the pre-World Cup camp as healthy as I would want to be. Injuries are the worst. The herniation cut my career short by a couple of years, I think. So you can point to a bunch, all learning experiences. Ultimately, you have to realize that you got paid to play a sport,
Mm-hmm.
which is insane when you think about it again. You get paid to work out. Honestly, it's a joke sometimes, because not at the time. At the time, it's a grind.
Yeah.
But when you step back for a year, 2 years later, you look back and you start to think like, wait a minute, I just got paid to work out. Well, now I'm paying to go work out at a gym.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite. So yeah, couple hard points, but nothing that crushed me or crushed my soul or, made me look at life different, really. No.
Oh yeah. This one kind of ties into it. Do you have any regrets from your playing career, things that you said you would have wanted to do differently, or things that you hoped would have turned out in a different fashion?
Yeah, I think, I love Seattle. I loved playing here for a long time, but maybe not a regret, but a what if I would have tried to go overseas and play and have that European experience. But, I was comfortable here and my wife was working. I had no solid offers. I was happy with being in Seattle, super happy, super stoked. But yeah, when I look back, maybe there was something there, maybe not. But that's pretty much the only, regret, if anything.
So sort of similar, not so similar. And you've already kind of spoken to it a little bit with the previous questions. What was your overall experience like with both the U20 national team and just the national team as a whole? What memories do you sort of take back from there? And what was it like? Because I'm sure it's obviously different, but what differences really stuck out to you from playing with those national teams as compared to playing in MLS?
So the under-20 national team was my first experience with, playing on a proper, big team. They sent me a giant box of Nike gear that could barely fit through the door. That was awesome. As a college player, you're stoked, right? You get 4 pairs of cleats, shirts, shorts, travel gear, all that stuff. That was rad. And then you get to play with the best players in the country that are your age. which is unique because when you start to go with the full national team, it's all ages. But now you're playing with the under 20s, and they're basically all, 18, 19-year-old kids. So you have this real group of peers that see the world and the game the same that you do. And then you step into the full national team, and you've got a 35-year-old with a 16-year-old, and you've got big cultural differences at the time. My under 20 national team was pretty much all collegiate players, sprinkled in with a couple foreigners. And now there isn't one college kid that'll make the under 20 national team. So it's 15 years later, 15 years more advanced. And then you get with the full national team, like I said, and you've got German-born guys that are Americans. You've got, certain guys, other countries. So it's a bit of a salad bowl, everyone tossed together. So you got to learn to really quickly, you got to learn about guys around you, because the reality is I've had times where I've played in Toronto. So Seattle to Toronto, play on a Saturday, Sunday, fly to Vienna, Austria, get there on Monday, train on Tuesday with a group of guys, Wednesday night, play a 90-minute game. Then you fly home on Thursday, fly to Toronto, straight to Houston from there, play on a Sunday, Monday morning, wake up, fly back to Seattle. Like it gets insane at times. And you're asking these guys to perform at the top level when you get one day to train together. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So those are massive differences in the way that things are kind of put together. Sometimes you have longer camps, which are nice, but sometimes you have very limited time together as a group, which is really difficult.
Jeez. So this one's might be a little more difficult for me to word. I was doing my sort of research, and I guess there was an interview that you did where you spoke on the importance of being a coach's favorite. I don't know if that rings a bell to you at all.
No.
Shoot. It was interesting to me because I was doing my research a little bit, and I apparently, as a soccer player, that came up, the importance of being a coach's favorite. I thought I would pick at that. I don't know if that,
I don't remember when that's from.
Reads any thoughts or,
I go both ways with that. I mean, it's great to be a coach's favorite because you're going to play. That's awesome. But there's a lot of stuff that leads up to being a coach's favorite. You got to be a good player, number one. And at some point, you must have earned the respect and the confidence of that coach at some point. So a coach usually isn't going to pick a favorite. If the coach knows about the game, he's not just going to play you because he likes you as a person. He wants to win. A coach wants to win. And it's not that it's important. It's not important to be the coach's favorite. The important thing is to be as good of a player as you can. And if that happens to be you end up as the coach's favorite, then whatever, right? That's just talk. It's talk. If you're a good enough player, you're going to play. If I was a coach of a team, yeah, I might have a favorite player on that team, but that doesn't mean that he's automatically going to play. If I see him not trying in training, he's going to go on the bench. Simple. So there's still a lot of onus on the player to be the coach's favorite. So I think that gets tossed around a little bit too much. But it's not, I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
Mm-hmm. I figured that might be, This next one, too, is something interesting because I didn't really know about it either. But what was your reaction to seeing yourself on a Capri Sun package?
Oh, man, that was awesome. It was actually more cool for my grandma because she used to buy Capri Suns for any time my younger brother would come over. And, I would crush Capri Suns all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was fun. And it was actually it was in some movie, too, which was pretty funny. It was like a Jake Gyllenhaal movie. My brother was watching it and he randomly saw it on the movie. Yeah, which was pretty funny. But anyways, yeah, that was pretty cool. Capri Suns were awesome. My grandma framed it, which I thought was so funny. That was pretty cool.
So with that, do they contact you or is that part of a contract thing?
Yeah, it's all part of a contract thing. Okay. It was in the movie Southpaw. That's right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So every year there's a media day, and Capri Sun or whoever owns Capri Sun is a sponsor of the league. And so you'll go into one room and they'll contact like 4 guys. It was like me, Michael Bradley, Eddie Johnson, and somebody else, Josie Altidore or something like that. And they say, oh, you got a photo shoot in here today. So then you walk in and it's like, oh, this is going to go on Capri Suns. And so you juggle a soccer ball once and they take a photo. And then you go into the next room and it's an interview with Barstool Sports. Or, you kind of just keep floating through these media room days where they get all their content for the year for those things. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Jeez, yeah, I saw that. I was like, this might.
Yeah, I didn't see a penny from that. Yeah, that's how that works.
Just kind of saw it.
You sign your life away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because like you said, I definitely remember. I haven't had one in a while. I should.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'll go to the store and I'll get some.
There you go.
But no, yeah, I thought that was something because I mean, if you see your face on something like that, it's like, hey, that's me. Did you remember doing that shoot back then when you first saw the packaging, or is it like
you forget about it? It was 6-8 months later. Like I don't even know if I don't even know if I knew that it was going on the cover of something.
Oh yeah, huh.
They don't even tell you. So I think they take photos and then they decide how they're going to use them in a marketing media way later on. So yeah.
So now I want to move over to the sort of brand ambassador. So I think you spoke about it a little bit, but what was that process like? How that came to be ultimately?
Yeah, I had been tooling around with a local company here that's in tech, doing some sales. It was a cool position, great guys, but I just had this inkling that I wanted to be in soccer still. So I reached out to the Sounders, sat down with them, and had some initial conversations about what I saw in the team and what they, maybe needed on somebody who's going to, be an ambassador for the team. So a couple months later, we, are still talking back and forth and sit down with Adrian and Taylor Graham was big in this. And then it's all about figuring out how that position fits into the structure of the company. Like, where does that really fall in line? Is it a marketing play? Is it communications? Is it, in this department, are they already full staffed? So there's a little bit of red tape. We were finally able to come to the agreement that it fell under communications. And that was pretty much it, man. I sat down with the president, Peter, and said, this is what I think needs to happen. I think the community involvement is going to be key with this club moving forward, and getting young kids involved and making sure that like this Sounders culture continues. And the best way to do that is with somebody who has been with the team for a long, long time. You can't just have an intern go out and say these things. You need somebody who's actually been through it before. So that was a pretty easy sell, to be honest. And everyone was on board from the beginning. And yeah, it got done pretty fast, to be honest. And, the job started out every gala, every event, every corporate sponsor, going to speak with potential corporate sponsors and stuff like that. And then 2 weeks later, COVID hit and everything changed. So everything's been online, Zoom sessions with youth teams, youth clubs, kids with cerebral palsy to, kids down in South Seattle doing an assembly, all the time, soccer clinics for the Ray Foundation online. So we've run the gamut and it's been fun, and happy to see where it goes from here.
It's been fun seeing the bus. I don't know if it got repaired. I think
it's repaired now. We're working on some stuff shortly to get it back out in the wild. Yeah.
That's if you haven't seen it, those who are tuning into this, this first kind of started because I went up to see Mr. Evans at encouraging voting in different areas. I believe I forgot the right terminology, but at areas that had significantly less turnout, I believe.
Yep.
At those ballot boxes. And I said, hey, this is a chance to go and speak with somebody who has been with the club, and I'll get into a little bit here later. But I like the way that you use your platform as an athlete. So I was like, hey, let me just go ask. And I put the picture on Facebook, but I never said anything about this. So, that might come to a surprise to some people, but
there you go.
I do think that's important to have somebody that, as you said, somebody that's been with the club, and has been through it, as you said, to go out and do these things. And I do think that's really cool. Obviously, with everything that's going on with this pandemic, kind of sucks that you can't do more in-person things, but at some point in time, we will get back to that, and I think it's exciting to see that.
Yeah.
Is there something in particular that you would say that you enjoyed most about being back with the organization at all?
Yeah, I just like being around soccer again. I spoke about it before that I don't want the actual playing side or coaching side, but being around the group has been fun, and reconnecting with fans. I'd say that's been really, really cool.
So would you say that last piece about, connecting with the fans again would be like a favorite part of that new position?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's all about community, bringing the community together, and right now keeping fans engaged. That's been huge as the season has rolled on. Making sure that the fans know they're the biggest piece of this whole puzzle, and what makes this club move forward and group do so well. Yeah.
So you've mentioned it several times, so it scraps my question about coaching. But what do you think that this current team, obviously going to play LAFC here for that first round, is there anything that you think that needs to happen in order to win those 4 games going forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here moving forward is your biggest players have to be at their best. In years past, Freddie Montero hasn't had good playoff success here with the Sounders, and the team doesn't do well. Eddie Johnson, not too much success in the playoffs. Clint, not too much success in the playoffs. Oba, same thing. But when Nico was successful, Raul, this team has won MLS Cup. So the big players playing well is no coincidence to this team winning. And you got to do that against LAFC because Vela is going to be on fire.
So, okay, that's that. Now I'm going to sort of switch out from that brand ambassador to sort of life as a whole. I do have a question about the Airstream because I do think that's pretty cool. But do you have a sort of interview that you enjoyed the most that you and Steve have done on the Winging It podcast? I knew that you had that, and I've seen that you've done the interviews. And there's one that's related to the next question, but is there one that sort of said, hey, this was a really cool opportunity to go and do?
Honestly, I like having everyone on. They all kind of get blended into one. I liked having Alexi Lawless on. I think he's a great speaker, and he's got that history of the game kind of wrapped up, and he knows what he's talking about. That was cool. I've never really sat down and talked with Alexi. Last week we had Casey on, Casey Keller, and he's a legend and has great stories, and that was really cool to sit down with him. Man, we've had a couple players on. Jeez. Yeah, Tommy Dutra is always a good one because he's just he doesn't get enough credit for how good of a goalkeeper coach he is. That was fun. Man, they're all great and super fun episodes when you're just rapping about soccer, and Steve's so good at what he does when he speaks and how he speaks, and super, super fun, all of them.
So this goes to a different Steve that I've seen a little bit about. What's your relationship like with Steven Hauschka?
Yeah, super close friend. One of my really, really good friends. We got connected here through our wives, and he's got the soccer background. The guy loves soccer more than he loves football, I think. He went to the World Cup in Brazil. He played soccer growing up and into his first year of college. Like, he wasn't even a football player. So we talk a lot about soccer. We don't talk much about football, to be honest, but we talk all the time, and a great friend of mine, great dude, and hopefully he gets on a team here shortly, if not at the start of next season. So football's a crazy sport, but yeah, Steve's an awesome guy, a thinker, just a great guy to be around.
Oh yeah, no, it was cool to me to see sort of that connection from, I think, the Buffalo. His time with Buffalo and the snow there, that gets ridiculous.
Yeah, that's cool.
And obviously here, and at least for me, if I had to pick a favorite kicker on our history, I'd have to go with Steven. He was always just somebody that was like a constant for me, at least,
Yep.
So obviously where you are now, what makes, being in this area like home for you? What sort of said, hey, I want to be here?
Yeah, pretty simple. I think, we love the outdoors. There's no better place to be if you like the outdoors. Maybe Denver, something like that. But to be honest, it just feels like home. You start to have a community. You're involved in charities. You're with people for so long. Like I said with Chad, you start to build this relationship that feels like family, and that has become the city has become that for us. You can have relationships with people. You can also have them with cities, and Seattle has been that place for us, and we'll be here forever.
I'll go off, well, not off track, but as you mentioned before about travel, is there anywhere else in the world currently, I guess when it's safe and all that, that you'd want to, is there anything that like you sort of have a target on, you say, hey,
Yeah,
I want to go here?
Yeah, I mean, I want to go everywhere. We went to Africa a year and a half ago, and that's the best place on earth. We went to Botswana and did safari. There's nothing better than that on the planet for me. Animals and nature all in one, just true wilderness was incredible. I'd like to do like the New Zealand, Australia, do those rounds. But honestly, I would, if I could pick one place, I'd go back to Africa right now. Yeah, do like walking with the gorillas or the chimpanzees in Tanzania, seeing the Great Migration, stuff like that. That is millions of years old, to be honest. Really, really cool place.
Yeah. So, how did acquiring the Airstream come to fruition? And is there any place that you want to take that? Because obviously, I think it'd be a little difficult to take that, I guess, overseas.
Oh yeah, it'd be tough.
And I think you had a sort of extended trip with it. So is there any place that you'd want to take it, and sort of how did that say, hey, I want to have this Airstream,
Yeah, I've been obsessed with the outdoors forever and camping and everything, and started watching videos of families on YouTube that were full timing and just cruising around the country. Super appealing to me. We don't have kids. We didn't have a dog. We don't have a dog. So it's just the two of us, and really easy to do whatever you want when there's just two of you. And so took a break and said, hey, let's go check these things out. And we rehabbed it, got it all how we wanted it. And I already had a truck. So we basically planned out 6 months, and we would do like all the national parks in between, and then kind of randomly pick these other parks, like state parks and free land on the way there, and just experience places we had never been. Becky's never been to Texas or New Mexico or Colorado or Wyoming. So, we wanted to make sure that we experienced as much as possible. We saw 21 national parks, drove 15,000 miles, and we had 2-3 days of rain and 1 day where we had to use the air conditioner. So we chased the weather, the best trip ever. In a heartbeat, I'd go back to the Grand Tetons. I think that is the best national park for me in terms of wildlife and hiking and overall beauty. Glaciers up there as well. So those two places I would go back to in a heartbeat when the weather's nice. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's definitely cool. I think, I don't remember, I don't know if it was recent, but I think you were at the Olympic National Park.
Oh yeah.
And I did a hike there with my uncles for the Brothers Peaks.
Nice.
That was difficult, but it's like, to me, sort of to go back to being here, having that sort of nature side, I think is a part of why I just, here's going to be home for me,
That's it. Yeah.
And then sort of last thing I've got here, I'll tie in, I'm sure you remember the tweet to our current president. I don't remember when it was, but I wouldn't consider it necessarily using your platform, but with everything that's happened, I guess, in the last 4 years, as well as the different issues that we've got in this country, how important is it for you, in your position, to use your platform to talk about certain issues that we've had from, as we mentioned, with, the turnout in different voting areas or other things like that? Do you think it's important to have that, to use that platform that you have?
Yeah. People, you can't have it both ways. People that want athletes just to play, athletics, and don't think that we don't think outside of sports. When I wake up in the morning as an athlete, I'm there from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, maybe 8:30 to 12:30. And then you're telling me the rest of the day, I just sit there and only watch soccer and only watch basketball. No, I am just as involved in what's going on in my community and my country as you are. you probably work longer days than I do. So I probably watch more and read more sometimes. Right. And I mean, freedom, you can't say freedom of speech and then tell somebody that they're not allowed to talk about something because they're an athlete. So you have to tread lightly sometimes, but you can also have a joke every once in a while and, have a laugh with that situation. And right now it's more polarizing than ever. Mm-hmm. And just like some family members of mine are going to stick up for what they think, so am I. So if that means me speaking out on a certain issue, then I'm going to do it. The funny thing is nobody ever comes to an appearance to sit down and have a discussion. Everyone can talk online and say you're wrong and da 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 da, but then nobody shows up at an appearance to get an autograph and says, hey, can we talk about this real fast? I really want to get your thoughts on it. No, because the same people that are saying shut up and dribble are the same ones that want an autograph. So it's an interesting space to be in as an athlete. And just knowing that there are rabid fans of sports and rabid fans of politics also. So ultimately, as an athlete, you can use your platform for whatever you want. If you want to do it for athletics, you can do it. If you want to do it for charity, you can do it. If you want to do it to make money for yourself, you can do it. That's why it's there. There's no rules within the team that say you have to say or speak a certain way. If you do, I've said stuff in the past, and all communications does come up and say, hey, just be aware that you're going to get questions about this today. That's it. They don't tell you what to say. It's weird how sports teams generally have the same views. Athletes, especially at the start of Major League Soccer throughout the world, everyone's kneeling before the game for that moment of silence for Black Lives Matter. And you have to look at it and say, wait, that's a super diverse group of people all working towards the same goal. And I would say 99% of them have the same views. Why is it that people that are part of athletics and in sports tend to have the same views? Is it because we know what it's like to be a part of a team truly? Is it because we know what it's like to lead a group of diverse people? Is it because, we understand what's going on because we are surrounded by people that have really been affected by it? We don't live in the middle of the country where everything's the same. We're in this super diverse community. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I just find it fascinating that sports groups, usually sports owners, have this view of like team and culture and togetherness. And then I look at a panel right now inside the White House and it's just all white dudes. For the most part. There are some groups that go in there and say, hey, we're working here on behalf of, a certain race or whatever, but it just seems so different to me.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know.
No, yeah, that was I did want to get your thoughts on that because I have seen that, both sides of that. I've followed LeBron for a while just because I don't have my Sonics here, and I saw him for both, obviously as the athlete that he is, but also the man that uses that platform to talk about so many issues. And when I think it was Laura Ingraham told him to shut up and dribble, I was just like, I don't know how you can say that to anybody, but
I find it funny that, everyone thinks that like athletes are just these uneducated guys, right?
No.
You look at our team and we've had Harvard, Brown, you've had top universities, Stanford, you've had top universities in this country where somebody will listen to the doctors that graduated from that school because they're doctors and they, perform surgeries and they're, trusted in their field. Maybe those doctors have, developed a prescription medication. Oh, we trust those. But we don't trust the kid that went to that school and played sports to talk about anything because, they just played sports there. Well, hold on. You're talking about the best universities in the world where people are getting educated and these kids are graduating with honors and, 1600s on their SATs. and you're saying these kids don't know what they're talking about at, 20, 23 to 30, you don't lose that education as you get older. So shut up with that. That stuff kills me. That stuff kills me. So.
Nope, I definitely did want to get your take on that. So.
Great time, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything that you want to? Obviously, you've got your podcast with Steve. Is there anything else that you'd like to put out there?
That's it right now, man. Just cranking out on the podcast every week or so. That'll probably, might slow down, but the Sounders are kicking into high gear on playoffs. So support this team through and through. And that's it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.